What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Today is going to be our episode. We're going to talk about some red flags in jiu-jitsu gyms. This is not an exhaustive list, obviously, because probably wouldn't have enough time for just a podcast. It'd have to be like an audio book, a multiple series program to get into all of them. But we'll talk about some of the red flags we've seen and experienced, and we've seen a lot of people deal with. And hopefully, if you're getting into jiu-jitsu, you can avoid some of these. And I'll say it like this: for some of you guys that are in jiu-jitsu, if you have experienced some red flags of your own, shoot us a message. Maybe we can do a follow-up to this episode. Shoot us a message with your name. You can do this to email, jiu-jitsupodcast@gmail. If you want to send it to me at my jiu-jitsu, if you're one of my Chew Crew email subscribers, if you want to reply to one of my messages and just say, hey, like, here's a red flag I've experienced, we can use your name. And, we can do first names. We don't have to put out your full name, but your first name and your message, and give you a shout out on the podcast if you'd like. So just send us emails, Instagram message, whatever you want, and we'll get that out there. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Athletic, ATHLETHC mints. They are THC and CBD mints mixed together, as well as other cannabinoids. And again, they are created to help support different functions. The three that I've tried that they have one called Rebound, they have one called Power, one called Flow. And as the names would sort of, allude to, the different formulations are there to help you get into a particular state. Whether you're getting ready to do some intense training, you're trying to get into that flow state, you're trying to relax a little bit and recover, right? And so again, I've used them several times over the last several months. I don't use them every single day, just because I'm just funny with stuff. I don't want to use it every single day, but I do like using them periodically. Especially during like hard training sessions, can recover a little bit. They kind of relax me a little bit. And even to get into a session where if I'm going to do a more experimental style, like situational drilling session where I can play around with techniques, I like using them then. If you guys want to check them out, they've got some good products out there. You can save 10% at checkout. Go to their website at athleTHC.com. And the promo code is Chewjitsu10 for 10% off. Also, thanks to our sponsor over at Epic Roll. Epic Roll has been a long-time sponsor of the podcast. They make terrific jiu-jitsu gear and apparel. I get my rash guards and shorts made through them because I think they're really good quality stuff. Honestly, as far as like comfort goes and just like the feeling of it, I've tried some of the biggest names as far as gear goes. I've tried it all, right? And it's still my favorite. Because again, like when I was getting ready to make my no-gi gear, I'm like, let me try all these different companies out. And it's the one that fits to me. If it fits the best, it's the most comfortable. And like, I feel like it's high quality. So I really like his stuff over there, Matt and, Zoltan, all those guys that own it. But I really like their stuff. And if you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website at epicrollbjj.com. They have more than no-gi stuff. They have gis, they have rash guards, shorts, of course. They also have t-shirts, hoodies, the whole deal, all high quality stuff. And you can get it at epicrollbjj.com, and their promo code rather for 20% off is Chewjitsu20 at checkout. Save 20% off your order. If you guys want to support the podcast, you can also check out our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. They're one of the OGs in the CBD space. Again, CBD's been around for a while now, and there's a lot of different companies out there. But again, Charlotte's Web stands, at the top of that industry because, again, they're third-party tested. They ensure the quality of what's in the product at a higher standard than what's required. And eventually, whenever CBD does get more regulated by the FDA and things like that, they'll be ready for it because they're already sort of putting themselves under that kind of scrutiny when a lot of companies don't. There was a test that was done some years ago where they tested a bunch of different CBD products out there, and a lot of them were not dosed accurately. Sometimes there was too much of something, too little of something. Sometimes there was stuff that wasn't even listed on the label that was inside it, compounds that you wouldn't want inside of a CBD type of supplement. But anyway, they have really good products. Again, they have CBD products, traditional CBD products. They also have things like CBN, which can be really useful for sleep. They have functional mushroom products like lion's mane, reishi, and some other ones that have some really cool beneficial properties. I've tried a lot of stuff from that they've made. I haven't been let down by any of it. And if you guys want to go through their website, find something, see if you like it, go to their website at charlottesweb.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off. If you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can roll on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/the-Chewjitsu-podcast. And when you go to the website, you'll get access to a bunch of different perks. Obviously, you know how Patreon works. We have a little Patreon put up. We put extra content and back-end perks and things like that inside of it. where when you become a member of it, you then get it. Now, I know a lot of people have commitment issues, even for a relatively small amount of money each month, but nonetheless, we try to make it worth it, especially for how little it costs. But if you guys want to check it out, you can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And when you join up, you can look at the perks, get the content that's in the back end, and become a member. And last but not least, guys, if you guys want to improve your jiu-jitsu faster, one of the things you have to do is you've got to be focused with your training. Showing up and just kind of going through the motions really isn't enough. You'll get better, of course, but you can get a lot better faster when you get focused. And again, you don't have to be a all-knowing jiu-jitsu guru at a gym that has a lot of red flags to be good at jiu-jitsu and improve faster and to put focus on your game. There's a lot of simple things you can do. And so I have a video that's, I think it's like 20 something minutes long. And there's an ebook that goes along with it, whether you want to read or watch or both. And you can get it for free at my website, jiu-jitsu.net/join. And when you join up, you'll be joining my Chew Crew email list. So you'll become a subscriber. You'll get my daily email, which a lot of people, thousands of people enjoy. And on top of that, you'll get access to that resource, Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which the whole point of the book and the video is to give people in jiu-jitsu who are not coaches, who don't control their training, who at best have open rolling sessions to train at, and give them some manner in which to improve their jiu-jitsu in a focused way. And so to help give you direction, which can both be really helpful for your game and improving skill, but also for your motivation, because when you have a clear goal you're chasing, it makes things a lot more fun. It's like the fog gets kind of pushed out of the way. So again, if you want to become a Chew Crew subscriber and get those resources, you can do so at my website, jiu-jitsu.net/join. All right, guys. So let's jump into this podcast and talk about some red flags. So Eugene and I have compiled some of our red flags that we've seen. Eugene's seen probably a little bit less than I have. I've seen some, and then he's probably heard of some though too from people. Although Eugene has had the dumb luck of being able to train with me for the last for most of his jiu-jitsu career. So even if there were some red flags going on, he probably wouldn't share them with you guys because I'm on the podcast with him. Maybe he'll save it.
Well, I'll tell you this. Like I started another gym, a gym actually that Chewy had trained at before, and I was there for about 2 years. So I didn't really realize a lot of red flags initially. There were some looking back on it, but like our transition, me and Adam from the videos, we started together at a different gym, and then we transitioned to kind of Chewy's gym. And a couple things, like Adam drove around to a couple different gyms. You kind of have to just go stop in, and there was some things factored in. Even though the gym, Derby City, is a little further away than some of these other gyms, but it was like some of the things for us initially was like kind of felt like there wasn't really a lot of open mat time. You have to kind of pay for every single thing that you did. If you wanted to do some boxing, kickboxing, or jiu-jitsu, there's only like kind of a set, schedule that wasn't very open. So that was one of the reasons kind of some of the gyms didn't really fit our needs. And the other thing was honestly, it was so much more welcoming. We felt wanted. Like some of these gyms Adam stopped in at, he was like, dude, they just didn't give a shit if I was there or not. Yeah. Like as a new potential, student. And then like when we came to Derby City, like you guys were like, yeah, we want all those guys to come over. Like we want those guys here. We felt like you guys really wanted us at your gym. And that was a big thing. And then after the first class, it was like, dang, this is cool. This is a very different environment. And you kind of start to realize the contrast. But when you're a prospective student bouncing around, we didn't really know a lot because there wasn't so many gyms around. You couldn't look shit up. It's kind of based on our first impression, our first feel. And that was just kind of how we got lucky. We ended up, you had a little bit of a relationship with some of the students at the gym we were at. So I think you guys having that connection wanted us to come over. And I think that was a big thing about it.
Well, and for me, I thought of it this way. One, I mean, there were like several blue belts and guys like you who are, pretty good white belts at that gym at the time, and that you're looking for a gym. So part of it, just for selfish reasons, I'm like, man, I'd love to get these guys in because, this is 2010 or no, 2009. So this is 2009, blue belts are a big deal. Good white belts were a big deal. The gym, at that time we had a couple purples, black or two, but it was mostly just whites and blues. So all of a sudden I get some new people to throw into the mix that are tough. Of course I want them. And then there's also the side of it where I had been without a gym before, or having to shop around, and it's not really a fun thing to not have a place to train after you've gotten bit by the bug. You're like, oh, I really love jiu-jitsu, and then you're looking around for a place to train, you can't find one. Not a fun place to be. So I wanted to make that as easy as possible, make the transition easy for you guys, so you could come over and hopefully you enjoyed the training, and then you stuck around and wanted to train with us. So there are multiple facets to it.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was just the environment. Like, we felt like you guys wanted us there. And that was a huge thing. Versus some of the other gyms were probably great, but like when you don't have a ton of experience, you're just kind of walking. You want people to get to. That's why, like, having someone at the front desk that kind of knows the gym, that either trains or has been there for a while, that can really kind of takes the time to show you around. Like, that's for business owners. I mean, it's like, that's your first impression. Sometimes you're not going to get a hold of the coach. They might not even be there, or they might be running class and they can't talk to you. So having some type of like way to like, hey, let me show you around, let me introduce you, let me show you these things, and taking the time was a huge thing for us too.
Yeah, and I don't think that a lot of, just as sort of on a side note from a business standpoint, I don't think a lot of coaches really, they don't quite understand that as much, like or as much as they should. Like, it's the unfortunate thing of repetition, where if you're a coach who's been doing this for a long time, it's very easy to get into this stuff. I do this every day. You're bored, whatever, or not as maybe bored, but it's routine. Versus it's this person's first time. Like, it's their very first time being here. This could be a magical experience for them. Many of us remember our first training sessions, and it was like, whoa. And again, could also be a really crappy experience for them. It sends them on their way. And, they don't really enjoy it because they're like, man, that wasn't very fun at all. So you could make or break someone's eventual training to black belt or whatever, just in the first pass through, just because of the way that you welcome the person and deliver good customer service. It's a business at the end of it. So that's your job.
We had a first class today, 6 a.m. class, small classes, kind of a different feel. And it was his first class showing up. And we're like, hey man, what's up? Like, come on in. And like, I was there, and we had Ryan teaching. So I got to spend a little time with him and kind of show him a few things and adjust to where he was. Obviously doesn't have quite the understanding of jiu-jitsu, but he's like, man, this is awesome. I'm gonna stick around. So I felt like really, I took some ownership of that too. I felt really proud of like, hey, it was a good experience for him. Like, he had a really great class, and he signed up. I was like, heck yeah. It's just taking, having other people, not just the coach and not just like the front desk staff, but having other people at the gym. Like, we're used to visitors, we're used to people coming in all the time, and just taking some ownership of that was really, it was like, hell yeah, let's see if we can get this guy to stick around. The more, the merrier.
Well, I mean, I even remember going out to New York when I was visiting, and I went to a really well-known gym, and the experience was not very good at all. I felt very unwelcomed. And I was a black belt at this time, and I wasn't big on YouTube or anything like that. At best, I had a blog that was kind of going, but most people didn't know who I was. And I remember going to the gym and training, and I was right there in the thick of it with some of their best guys, no problem. But I remember I had originally had intentions of making a blog post and talking about my experience at the gym, whatever. But then I remember afterwards, like, oh, nope, not doing that. I had such a bad experience. Now I'm not going to trash someone's gym or whatever, because one, it was, it wasn't the main guy that was there, and the coach there was really nice. But man, a lot of the students very weird. A lot of the upper belt students and stuff are very strange. And I just think about that experience right there, could have possibly, caused their gym to get more students. Because imagine if for the last 10 years I had referenced that experience, and if it was a good experience, I would have talked about the gym. But I never talked about the gym because it was such a bad experience, and I don't want to be one of those people trashing it. And I just didn't really like the experience. It was very frosty. I think about, we had a guy years ago who came to our gym named Bill, and he was a guy in the Navy, was doing some training down at Fort Knox, doing something that they have a training course there. and he was doing some training there, and we rolled when he was a purple belt. Invited him out to the gym. He had a great experience, loved the gym, the whole deal. I remember he probably sent, I mean, no less than maybe like 20, 25 people to us, because
awesome.
what happened was is he went back over to Iraq, was talking to some of these guys, these military guys. He's like, hey, when you guys get, sent over to Fort Knox, because that's where some of them were going.
Yeah.
He said, man, you got to train at this place. You got to train this gym. This is the gym you got to go to. The rest of those gyms, eh. And again, he went to some of those other gyms, called those other gyms, but because of the frosty reception, he just didn't do it. Now, again, you can think of this as dollar and cents. If you're a business owner, you could think of this as goodwill. You could think of this as just helping someone else because, I mean, damn it, someone helped you out at some point, right? Regardless of whether you're a coach or you're just a student, someone helped you out at some point to get better. It's just about, continuing that on rather than, being super frosty or, being a sort of aloof jerk to someone who's just getting started. So, I think about it from multiple angles. It just pays to try to be a reasonably decent person to other people. And again, follow that golden rule. It's a really simple one, right? Treat people like you want to be treated. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could even be a red flag, like, hey, what's the reception you get when you're popping into a gym? Are they welcoming? Are they not welcoming? Are they kind of standoffish? I think some people, are maybe like, because you're not homegrown, essentially didn't start with them. Maybe you started somewhere else and you're kind of looking at a gym. Maybe they're like, oh, well, they didn't start with us, so we don't know what they bring to the table, essentially. So I don't know if that's something that gyms or
Possibly for
coaches.
like experienced people or something, who knows?
Yeah. So I think, if you're checking out gyms and you're maybe moving gyms, I think having a great reception, having some people actually want you there, kind to you, I think it's a huge, huge importance.
Yeah. Well, and this kind of goes to like the first thing whenever I talk about red flags, 'cause I've talked about the subject before.
Yeah.
The first thing to begin with is this normal and acceptable behavior, jujitsu or not? Right? Like, you don't have to make it complicated, right? Like if someone is doing things that would not fly anywhere else, or the reasons they're doing it, whatever's going on, something's going on that wouldn't fly anywhere else, then it's probably a red flag, right? I mean, that's just, a lot of times, like for instance, with black belts, people they give a lot of respect to black belts, and there's this kind of authority, this sort of like they're up here,
Yeah.
pedestal, putting them up on a pedestal type thing. And there's nothing wrong with showing respect to your coach, having respect to your teacher, having a certain reverence to the relationship you have, because if you are going to if you're going to get the most from a coach, there has to be a slight bit of submission to that relationship. When I say submission, I don't mean that you're kowtowing, that you're, bending your knees and bowing at their altar. But like, for instance, if you are going to get the most from a coach, I'm going to say this, and this is going to sound really weird, and I don't mean this in any strange way. It makes me think of a relationship with God, right? So whatever deity you wish, whatever is fine. But for instance, with God, there's several in Christian scripture, right? Like in the Bible, there's several references to this where they talk about like if God's going to work through you, you have to be willing to let him. You have to submit yourself to the whole process. Otherwise, how can he possibly do that? Right? If you're someone that's like a staunch, like, this is the dumbest stuff ever. I'm not reading this Bible. I'm not going to this. I'm not, whatever. That's fine. Of course, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for you. Right? I think about my mom as an example. She was at one point in her life, she was alcoholic, boozing it up. Her kids had been taken from her. So we were living at our grandpa's house and other people's houses, me and my sisters. And I remember my mom was driving her car one day, and this is what she told me. I remember before she passed, we were having these like real heart-to-heart conversations because we were spending so much time together when we're traveling for chemo treatments, and just I'm at the house a lot with her. And I remember her saying that she was sitting in her car and she said God spoke to her. And she was like, a bit religious, right? You wouldn't say like, super, super crazy reading the scripture every day, but she had a religious element to her. And I remember she said that God spoke to her and said, hey, you got to stop drinking, just in a flash. And she quit cold turkey. And she really leaned in she doubled down at that point in her faith, leaned into it like hardcore, got us in church. We were at church all the time, involved in it. Right now, let's say that, for instance, let's say that God does exist. Well, God gave her a message, and then boom, she doubled down on it and sort of used that and used the message that he gave her to support her through that really difficult thing. Think about how many people cannot stop addictions, right? How many people can't stop drinking? She quit cold turkey instantly, just stopped. And within just by the way, her life was in shambles. And within less than a decade, she had her stuff together. She owned a home. She, finally wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. She was doing all right. You know what I mean? Made some better decisions. Now, let's say that God doesn't exist. And it was just her belief in whatever that was provided to her at the church and the faith that she had there, this belief in this system, this submission to this whole thing. She leaned into it and she got something from it. Right. And so just on a sort of a side thing, when you think about that, if you're going to get the most from a coach, you have to put your trust in them. You have to lean in on that. It's like with my diet coach, when he sends me stuff, it's like, here's your workout plan. Here's the foods you need to eat. Got it, coach. I am submitting myself to you as the student, as the learning person, because whatever you say, like if this is what you say, I trust that you know what you're doing, and he does know what he's doing. So it's worked out great for me. And likewise, I coach him. And when I coach him, he literally will say, man, I'll do whatever you ask me to, just kind of give me direction. There is that relationship. And I know we live in this, sort of like individualistic world and this and that, whatever. But at the same time, if you're going to have a coach and you want to get the most from that relationship, if you see red flags, it is not good or normal behavior, there's a problem. But assuming that this person has your best intentions at heart and they're doing a good job by treating you correctly, then there is a bit of element of submitting to it, right? Yes, I'm coming to you as a coach. What do you want me to do? I'm following you. Let's do it. Right. So there is an element to it. But again, it really starts with, first off, when you're talking about red flags, is this acceptable elsewhere? Is this acceptable behavior in other realms of life? Would this be normal and natural type stuff? Is this stuff that you would put up with elsewhere? And if the answer is no, there's a possibility it could be a red flag, right? Not everywhere, right? Because obviously, you wouldn't want your barista at Starbucks to try to choke you, right? And like, you wouldn't want your barista to really take it to you on the mats, right? Or in the coffee shop. But again, you could say, is this person taking it to me because they're trying to help make me better? Or are they just really mean to me because of something else, right? I mean, there's things that you can do. So is it normal behavior? That's something that I always talk about with black belts. We're people, right? We're coaches, and there's a certain dynamic to the coaching student element, but at the end we're people. And so you got to treat us like people. We're not all knowing God, guru, demigods, whatever. We're just people. We're messed up and have our own fallible, issues. We're fallible. We're broken. And, it's when we're coming to you, we have an area that we know how to really do something in, but that's that. So anyway, that's kind of my quick ramble on that first sort of idea.
So just kind of essentially unacceptable coaching behavior. So let's talk about that. A coach that would kind of show the technique, and then they would kind of play on their phone, or they would kind of back off, or they wouldn't really be as engaged, wouldn't really instruct. Essentially, like I felt like they weren't as engaged in the coaching and the teaching past certain points. So kind of just not there. And I've seen other kind of people I've talked to say that, yeah, the coach is kind of not really involved, not really, beyond like the very minimum, like here's the technique, go and do your thing, not really instructing or giving feedback. So that's something that I've kind of seen as well. So I'd say that's probably something unacceptable. It's like you're doing your job, but you're half doing something else and you're not really focused on the follow through.
Yeah, bro. That's something you see more and more now. I had a similar experience. It's one of the reasons why I left that first gym. I remember I'd come back from being out because of a job schedule thing, and I finally got my schedule changed, came back to a class, and the class literally, I was all excited to come back in, and the class was literally the coach sitting on their computer, their laptop, running people through, like, we called them grass drills, where, basically, hit, push-ups, crunches, and you're just moving through these exercises. And it's great for getting a cardio burn, but not really anything skill-wise. And I remember being very bummed about that because I didn't actually get to train that day. There was no real hard rolling. It was just busy work. It's to give you you could draw the equivalent to, you go to school, and instead of really learning something, you're just doing busy work. You're not learning anything. You're just kind of doing worksheets or some garbage, right? It wasn't really all that useful. But yeah, I think that's one that I've seen a lot of, is where you'll see a lot of coaches where they will fiddle around on their phones. Now, if you came to my classes, you would see me fiddling around with my phone typically because I have my notes stored on my phone. And I also use the timer and the music on my phone. So it's all there in one little place. So I don't scroll on social media, but I remember I've talked to several people enough that it is a thing, like a fair amount, where people will tell me their coach will teach them something, whatever. Here's a move, go try it. And they'll go sit off in the corner and just fiddle around on their phone, text on social media. One student in particular said, he told me this down in Costa Rica. He said, I really loved the classes that you do, and you're very involved. And I remember asking, like, opposed to what? And he said that he came down to one of the other Costa Rica camps, and that particular coach would literally sit on their phone and, in one point took a picture of the class, started posting on it, but wasn't involved. So they're taking a picture, look at my big class, but instead of being involved in the class, they're just texting on social media. And I this is one of my rants that I get on my soapbox about, is people's addiction to phones and gadgets, and their unwillingness to accept that they have an addiction to them. Like, there's a problem. I was talking to one of our students today. She's a nurse, and this blew my mind. She works in the baby mother where they do births and stuff, right? Eugene, you're gonna laugh about this one, bro. As a devoted father, you're gonna be like, holy crap. She says that no less than once a week, they will have a guy where, in the room where the woman is giving birth, or is going through these labor pains, they're in the thick of it. The guy will bring in like an Xbox or a gaming system, hooks it up to the computer, and sitting there playing the game, right? And if everybody's asleep or something, sure, whatever. But said that at one point, playing the game, hits the button for the nurse. Yes, what can we do for you? Oh, the baby needs a diaper change. I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? That's bananas. I couldn't imagine that. I mean, I'm sure that for you, the first time you probably saw your son or your daughter, there's this almost like awe of this little life form. You're like, oh my God, look at this thing, right? I can't fathom that. And so you see these people with like these addictions. And so again, going back to it, your coach is completely not present, dicking around on their phone. Yeah. Okay. Well, would that be acceptable? Is that acceptable in a situation where the woman is giving birth to a kid and the guy is sitting there on his friggin' Xbox playing Call of Duty? No, of course not. It's terrible. It's a dumb thing to do. It's stupid. Or you're at a restaurant hanging out with your friends and one person's over in the corner texting. It's not acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable. By the way, if for some reason, if any of you ever eat dinner with me, if we're all in conversation and you start texting on your phone and you completely disengage, I'm probably going to grab the phone from you. And it's like, take it from you. Like, come on, man, like engage people to people. Yeah. Like it's ridiculous. So yeah, that's when I see a lot of, and I think it's just a situation where you have someone that's either completely disconnected, cashed out, whatever, or, they have a really bad phone addiction and they're not willing to admit that they do.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be that. It could also be somebody that's bored, or like they're
cashed
out. They're burned out. Yeah.
Going through the motions.
Yeah. Which you can fucking tell. You can, like, I don't know. I'm a newer coach. I don't know how long I've been doing the 6 a.m.s, but man, like, it's such a skill to teach. And I love, like, after class, like, did you hit that thing? Did you hit that move? Or did you hit, how many people hit the move, or how many people at least attempted, or just see people actually learn and able to implement a technique is like so rewarding. So it's kind of like a selfish thing in some capacity, right? But a good selfish thing, because you want them to improve. And I'm not doing it. I don't want them to hit the move, just say, haha, I taught you that. I want them to hit the move because I remember that feeling as a student, and I still get that feeling. You'll show something in class, and I'm like, damn, that was cool. I was able to implement or hit that thing today. That was awesome. So it's just like but that's a reciprocal thing, right? You get something out of it, I get something out of it. That's awesome. That's a great way. And I think coaching is such a rewarding thing. Just because I know the excitement and the joy I have with jiu-jitsu, and I think being able to share that and kind of share my knowledge is kind of fun. And I just think it's awesome. So really important, like having a good engaged coach is so important. If you don't have a coach that's engaged, it kind of really takes the joy out of it for you as well. I think
it can be a bummer for sure.
Yeah, it can be a real bummer. And that could lead to another point. I think like a gym culture environment, talking about environment as well, having like a environment of like trying to take each other's heads off versus like, hey, let's, if you're getting a bunch of people getting injured, for example, that are hard training. I mean, injuries happen, but like if people are constantly getting injured, that could be something with like a red flag with environment, not being safe or not being conducive to kind of learning.
Yeah, there's, at my original gym, me and some of the guys, because several of the guys that trained at the gym that I trained at way back in 2003, 2004, 2005, they train at our gym now. They were there with me in the beginning, and they're black belts at our gym now. We talk about it, and it makes me think of the sort of the mental image that I give people is that I remember our coach almost being like the emperor, like when you watch like the Gladiator movie, sitting there with his thumb, right? And just wavering, get rid of him, kill him, keep him, whatever. And it was this thing where he would watch us. And whenever it made it really difficult to experiment because you were always trying to win. Because if you didn't do well during a roll, got your guard passed, you did something else, you tried a new move and didn't go out, the coach would sort of almost like disown you for the day. It was almost like just turn and like look away, and would start barking at you to, like, why did you do that? Da, 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 da. And there's a time and place for that. If we're doing some hard competition rounds and, you're getting taken down and you're not wrestling back up to try to deny the points, there's an element that needs to be done. But, in a lot of cases, especially when you're talking about just day in, day out where you're experimenting, there has to be room for play. And so there was not a lot of play at our gym because you were rolling and it was like kill or be killed every single day. And that was tough, man, because it creates a mentally taxing place where you're driving to the gym, you're super nervous every single time because it's just going to be a fight. And then also too, like you said, injuries. If you're young, you'll be okay. But if you're not, in your late teens, early 20s, you're going to get chewed up because you just won't be able to take that kind of punishment. Versus if we can sort of play in different levels of intensity, we can experiment a lot more. And if we can experiment a lot more, we also get better. That was one of the things actually that I noticed when I came to the gym that, once I left, I went to a different gym. I remember the coach was far more encouraging of playing, putting yourself in bad positions and these sorts of things, purposely trying to fail. And it took me a while to sort of grip onto that and accept it. And then when I did, I got so much better at jiu-jitsu. And I think about how much I was hindered early on because I was always trying to win versus actually get better, finding my weaknesses, plugging those gaps. Hard to do that when the only thing that you think matters is winning. And because your coach is constantly like hovering over you. And if you don't do well, or, we don't only say do well, but if you don't get the better of the exchange, if you're not the hammer that day, it's basically like you get pushed out. Oh, I'm not paying attention to you right now. That's not a good environment. That's not a good environment for day-to-day training. Can you have that kind of situation periodically or on certain days for certain types of intense training? Of course. But constantly, day in, day out, with no break, no, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, there's time and place for it. If you got a big competition coming up, MMA fight, whatever it is, you better be scrapping and fighting, not giving up position, because you want to build that mentality and that like responsiveness to where you just don't lay down or accept the position. So when you're getting ready for a big tournament or a competition of some sort, I think that's, to have that, like we've had tournament rounds. We've had, like, when I was getting ready for ADCC, me and Rob, we did points, or we did like the rule format exactly for ADCC, because I was like, I want to see if I can win or if I can get my points or whatever I need to do. And we had the time and we were going pretty hard at it. So I think there's a time and a place for that. But that's just the norm and the environment. You're going to deal with a lot of injuries. We had a similar, we didn't have this was an unintended thing that happened, but we were doing here's an example at the gym, and we kind of learned quickly, like, hey, the thing is, we had like these like white belt, blue belt kind of like assessment day, purple belt assessment day, brown belt assessment day, right? So we have the purple belts, maybe blue and purples together, whatever it was. And you're like, hey, go ahead and move around. I'm just going to be watching. And then people start getting popping stuff and getting injured. We had 2 injuries like in the first like 10 minutes. And you're like, hey, so I already know who's getting a damn belt or not. Like, chill out. Like, stop. People were going hard because they felt like, they were kind of being scrutinized. And it really wasn't like that. It's like, hey, I'm trying to see where you're at, but this is not going to make or break your ability to get a belt or your evaluation of it. Was kind of just seeing where you kind of were. And
I mean, it technically it could have, made or break, but like if you were going to get one, you were going to get one, I mean, it's like when Jeff, brown belt, I made him wait a little while to get his black belt because his guard wasn't very good. Now, no matter how hard he would have rolled from his guard, it's just the technique wasn't there. I could tell, right? So, this, with the purple belts, they started going crazy. Yeah. And like I had to tell him, like, just don't worry about it so much. Just play your game so I can see where you're at versus trying to, just destroy yourself on a day, random Wednesday, because you're rolling with other purple belts and you think this is a big deal.
Right. And so but most of the time it's like we're playing around, we're working from positions, we're getting into, all right, here's somewhere where you're maybe uncomfortable or a position that we're working. Let's go start there. Like, this is part of the class. And so you're going to get submitted. You're getting in positions where it's probably more often than not, you must start with somebody on your back, for example. All right. Well, can you get out? Maybe not. You might get submitted. It's a terrible position to start in. So it's one of those things where you kind of have that play and have that exploration, and you put people in some of these positions where, it's not as big of a deal. We're not trying to kill each other. We're trying to keep it safe, but still, I think it's the norm to play and try stuff out. We're not trying to kill each other every training session. Again, there's a time and a place for it, but still you can be safe when you have that increased intensity.
Yep. Here's another one for you guys. Drugs and alcohol abuse, right? So think about any workplace, any business, anything that you're dealing with customers, right? I don't think any of us would say that it would be a good thing or an acceptable thing to have someone come in drunk or severely intoxicated or on recreational drugs like crazy to where they're not functioning. There's a difference where, I know people like smoke weed and stuff like that, whatever, it's fine. To a degree. But if you walked into a business and the dude's like, hey, bro, and like stoned out of his mind, not a good look. And we've let several coaches go over the years, either because or in part of the fact that they were coming to the gym teaching classes and they were sauced up. They were drunk. They smelled like alcohol. They were, so stoned that they're just coming in and just walking. I mean, it's just terrible stuff. And again, that's not acceptable anywhere else. We don't allow people to do that. And you can't tell, weed makes me this. That's fine. A little bit's fine. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything, right? Just like a person, if for some reason, if they smoke cigarettes or something, whatever, I mean, it's stinky, but whatever. But with some of it's like, yeah, sure. Okay. You do this stuff, but you don't want to be dealing with someone that's so like drunk and, intoxicated out of their mind that they shouldn't be driving, let alone they're trying to teach a jiu-jitsu class or coach you or whatever. I mean, hell, I remember my first coach. He was, this was one of the ones where I lost a lot of respect on this. I remember he came to my first MMA fight. I mean, drunk, and granted, we keep in mind that we got to this venue at about 6 or 7 o'clock, already drunk. Right. And then in backstage, they brought some beers in. And while I'm trying to focus on getting myself ready for this rite of passage, your first MMA fight, for any of you guys that have ever fought before, it's a big deal. It can be a very like anxiety, producing thing. It can be a very scary thing. Yeah. You're getting ready to go into this cage and fight another person who's going to try to bludgeon your face in. And this is also the second MMA show in Louisville at the time. So, you know, it's still a relatively new thing in the area. This is 2006. I remember just being super upset about that. And luckily, one of our guys who's a black belt at our gym now, Mike, was there. Mike was not intoxicated, because I remember getting there and I've got my stuff with me and I don't know how to wrap hands, you know. And so my coach is drunk and I'm like, oh no, who's going to wrap my hands? And then I remember Mike, he's like, hey, I got you. Come here real quick. Mike wraps my hands. He wraps my gloves. He's talking to me. He's coaching me through it. And like, that was so helpful because, you know, for a lot of you guys, like part of the job for a coach in those moments, you know, when you have a guy who, think about this, as a guy who is getting ready to test himself out there in a fight, whether it's jiu-jitsu, MMA, boxing, whatever, the only thing, there's so much stuff swirling in the person's mind, self-doubt, nervousness, anxiety, what ifs, all this stuff going on. And so part of the job of a coach at that point is to know their athlete and to, one, comfort them, give them this place of like, hey, I'm with you, right? Think about with your kids, right? Like if they're nervous, you got something big, you try to, as a parent, you comfort them. As a coach, you kind of give your athlete some comfort so that you're this like sort of steady, you know, rock that they can lean on in this time of anxiety and nerves that they have. And then it's also there to, you know, remind them, hey, you got this. You're good enough to do this. We trained hard for this. Right? Put that something. You're their hype man behind them, because you've got to help that person fight off, especially if they're prone to it. Help them fight off any of that nervousness or insecurity or the self doubt. You got to help dash that. You know, I remember one time, one of the fighters that we had years ago, guy was an athletic freak. He's a bodybuilder now. His name's Nick. He's like super jacked, but athletic. I mean, incredibly athletically gifted. And the guy was massive. He was a 185 pounder. And when we would take this guy around, everybody would ask, like, who's your heavyweight? Huge guy for his size. And I remember like talking to him, and he always struggled with this negative self-image of himself. Right. He just didn't think he was big and whatever else. And I remember, you know, working with him the whole night, because I knew his head. So I'm constantly in his ear, constantly reminding him. I remember right before we got out there to the fight, his opponent is right in front of us. His opponent's, you know, a bigger guy, thicker guy, but like, I mean, nothing compared to Nick. And I'm right behind Nick. I'm rubbing his shoulders, you know, and I'm talking to him right in his ear, like, dude, you got this. Like, I'm basically giving him his affirmations. You know, I'm like Jiminy Cricket with Pinocchio. I'm over top of him, sitting on his shoulder, telling him like the reality of the situation. Dude, you got this. And I remember him saying, man, that guy looks big. Talking about his opponent. And I like immediately went off on him. I'm like, no, like in a good way, right? I'm like, no, dude, you don't realize. And I'm like going back, whatever else. Afterwards, I remember him saying something like, dude, I felt like I could just like after that, when I got into the ring, I just felt like I could run through a wall. Like I was like, nobody's going to stop me. That's the job of a coach. Right. And so again, just kind of going back to it, you know, your job of a coach or an instructor, if you just teach, you're giving people very valuable stuff. And I don't think you can do that to the best of your abilities if you're, you know, coming into class drunk, you know, sauced up, super stoned, intoxicated in some way, shape, or form, right? I think it takes away from it. And it also, to me, shows a level of disrespect for yourself, right? To me, it's incredibly disrespectful. You show up and you don't have the decency to be your sharpest mentally for those people that are there, people that are taking time off from their day to come in there. They could be doing that, spending that time with someone else, people that are spending hours of their life through their work to pay for the gym membership. And you can't simply just be together with it. Again, it goes back to the addiction thing. You have an addiction, you have a problem. You need help for that. And I remember talking to one of our coaches we let go years ago, and he eventually got into AA and some different stuff. And you know, he's been sober for some years now, but you know, we had to let him go because of it. And so again, I think that's one that I've heard of and I've seen and I've experienced, and it's a red flag, not a good thing.
So another one that I haven't really, you know, there wasn't, when I started training, there wasn't really opportunities for cross training, but nowadays it's like, if your gym doesn't really allow cross training, that's a big thing. And or they discourage you from going to other gyms, or you don't really have a lot of visitors. They kind of discourage visitors as well. That was kind of going back to the welcoming environment. I think that's part of that as well. So the cross training, and that's kind of weird, right? It's like nobody owns you. Like, yes, you go to this gym, you train, this is your primary gym. Now you can't be, I don't know if I agree with you bouncing around to two gyms unless it's like you're living somewhere and there's living somewhere else, I guess. I don't know. That's a tricky thing, but like not cross training, like maybe going to open mats, for example, right? Like if they discourage you from going to open mat, or you guys don't have open mat at your gym, so it's kind of very closed off, very private training, I guess. I think that could be a potential red flag. You shouldn't have anything to hide. I think cross training is a great way for you. It's helpful on so many levels because it kind of, you get a bunch of different looks. You get to meet people. You get to see where your jiu-jitsu, I mean, you're not trying to like, go after somebody else, but you're kind of seeing how you stack up against people of your similar size and skill set. I think it's just a helpful thing, and it can also expose a little bit of areas to work on. So I think there's a lot of benefit to it. But yeah, in my opinion, I think having a cross training or open mat kind of thing is pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been pretty open to it. I remember years ago, again, kind of one of the ones that I experienced. One of my first coaches, he was very anti, cross training, and it was this big deal. And if you cross train, you could just tell there was a lot of insecurity about it. You know what I mean? It was, how did you do? Oh man, those guys. And you would also notice this. This is another one that kind of goes along with this, is like insecure coaches. They'll talk badly about other gyms in the city a lot, right? It's one thing, like for instance, I will share pretty openly with my students that like there are several gyms in the city where the coaches have talked negatively about me and have talked shit about me. In some cases, I've never trained with them, I've never met them, and they'll say negative things about me. Or in some cases, it was like I thought we were cool, but they found out people talk negatively, and I don't really care. I think that we all have so much room in our brain. It's like a computer, right? You've only got so much hard drive space. I don't want to waste any of that hard drive space focusing on people talking trash about me. But sometimes it comes up, and I'll see very openly, they talk trash about me, but I don't really have anything else to say beyond that. I don't really care, right? Like if you're talking about me, then that's fine, right? But I don't want to talk about you, and I want you living rent free in my noggin. But with the cross training thing, there was always a lot of insecurity about it. And for me, I didn't understand why, because here's the thing to think about. I think it's good to have this is my personal belief. I think it's good to have a home gym, a place that you're committed to. If you want a coach or an instructor to be committed to you, you should be committed to them. It's a two-way street, right? Now, I know some people say, well, I pay for this, that. Well, that's fine. And you pay for it. So if you want to come in and just like get your instruction rolled and leave, and your coach really not give you that much attention, that, no more than anybody else, that's fine. But if you're like trying to really grow and get better, it's good to have a place that you train at consistently, to where a coach knows, hey, this person's going to be around. I see them in here all the time. Let me invest into them because they're invested into this place, right? That's kind of an important thing. And I think it's good to have that. That said, there is value in going and training at other places. Like you said, you get different styles, you get different experiences, you get to share and experience more stuff. And the cool part about it is if that you have that home gym and then you go cross train, you can bring it back. And that's the way that I've always seen it. Like when I was cross training, it was never to leave. It was, I just wanted to go like learn some stuff and bring it back to our guys, make us better. I remember in high school, we would, granted you can't change high schools like that, but we would, in high school, sometimes our coaches would put together, typically towards the end of the season when we were going to state, we would get together with some of the high schools in our area up here, right, when we were getting ready for state, and we'd cross train. And it was fun because you would get to like swap moves and different experiences. Oh, this is a finish that I use for the single leg, whatever. You get to do the same thing with cross training in jiu-jitsu, where you get to exchange and swap moves and techniques and philosophies and everything else, and you can bring it back to your home gym. And so I never saw the negative side about it. And that was another one of the reasons why I left, because I remember it being such a big deal. And, again, I don't want to feel like I'm under the thumb of someone. I was committed to my coach to the degree where I literally, like when we opened up the gym, we were training out of like little spaces in weightlifting gyms and all that kind of stuff, right? We didn't have our own place. When we opened up our first actual location that was solely devoted to us, it was under my name. I signed the lease. I was on the hook for it. Luckily, you know, it was paid, but like I was on the hook for that money. Not a great decision, but whatever. And even when I left, you know, I remember I left and there was still about a year on the lease, and I'm still on the hook for it. And so I was committed to that gym 100% all the way through. But then all of a sudden, you know, you're not engaged. You're coming to the gym, you know, intoxicated, and then you're like, I can't go train anywhere else, right? You have to train here. Oh, well, why? You know, one of the craziest experiences I remember hearing about, this is not mine, was a buddy of mine. He's a black belt, or actually, to me, he's a brown belt at the time. And he was training under a very traditional lineage in jiu-jitsu. And he was out in New York, and he went and trained with Marcelo Garcia, even got to roll with Marcelo Garcia. You know, this is 2000, maybe 2008, maybe 2009, somewhere in that territory. You know, Marcelo Garcia is at that time, especially, I mean, huge. Like, you know, it's one of the best premier grapplers. First off, he's a GOAT. He's one of the best of all time. But at this point, he's still in his prime, right? And so he went and trained with Marcelo Garcia. No brainer. Why wouldn't you? And they're about the same weight. It only makes sense. He gets a call from the association because he posts on Facebook. He posts this picture of him and Marcelo Garcia. And, you know, he's like, man, I hardly ever talk to this guy. And then all of a sudden he's calling me because he's pissed at me for going and training with Marcelo Garcia. And again, this guy comes from a traditional lineage. He's a brown belt. He has his own gym, and he only sees this other coach when seminars roll around. So he doesn't see him that often. It's like, why do you care so much? Why wouldn't he train? And you know what happened? That led him to change his associations. There were other reasons that led to it, but that was just one of the last like final straws. And, you know, he left and went to a different association that he's been a part of now ever since. And so, you know, I think it's a bad idea when you try to like hold on to people, because as you know, you and I've said plenty of times, we don't, as coaches, you don't own them. Your job is to do your best by them and help them out as much as possible. But at the same time, they're their own person. They can do what they want. But on the flip side too, if you're a person who actually wants like someone to commit to you as a coach and like, you know, take care of you and look after you and have a little corner in their brain. Cause I think about it this way, the students that are the most consistent, like there's a little chunk of my brain that sits with them and they're there at all times. You know, like all you guys that are like, you know, if I don't see you, I'll text you, whatever. You're there in my brain. I have a little spot for you. And I'm always kind of like, if I come across something I think might be useful to you, I'll talk to you about it, or, you know, whatever, you're there. I'm going to do that for the people that I see consistently, that I know are coming in, that I know are dedicated to the training at the gym, to the other people there. But at the same time, I have plenty of people who cross train, go to open mats, go to different gyms. I don't care. You know, it's fine. And so that's kind of my rant there for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it's your intention, right? Like, it's what's your intention as a coach. Like, and I think you got to be, you don't have to be, but I think you should be confident in what you teach and feel like if you're giving truly your best and you're giving your undivided attention and you're really showing up to teach, what happens at that point. That means you've done everything in your power to provide the best instruction, the best environment, the best kind of experience for your students. And look, not everybody is gonna feel like this environment is best or that environment's best. Everybody's different, may have a little different needs, but that's okay, because you don't own anybody, but like you give them your best experience. I think once you do that, what they do with their time or where they choose to train is up to them. And the more you try to control them, the more they're going to resist that and eventually push away from you. I've got one more. We've got plenty. Right. I mean, this isn't like an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. There's so much of like,
you did a Reddit post too, and you've got a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, I did. Like, I decided to do like this Reddit, just like I sometimes will ask like Reddit, like BJJ, I'll put some questions in just to see what kind of silly nonsense. A lot of great responses, a lot of like same things. Like you see a lot of the same things.
Yeah, we'll read through some before we're done.
And some really weird stuff that I'm like, that's not really a red flag. But all right. So the last one of the ones, and this one, I was talking to somebody. That's kind of where all this came from. I was talking to somebody from another gym, and they're like, kind of just explaining their experience. They were, I
Mhm.
think, a white or blue or something. I think they were white, and white belt, and they were getting to a blue belt. They're close on the cusp.
Okay.
Some weird kind of practices. For me, they're weird. Maybe they're normal for that gym environment, whatever it is. But so I talked to someone. They're like, I've been training this long, but I haven't been able to roll. Like, or I
Mm.
didn't start rolling until 6 months. I'm like, 6 months? Like, what do you
Long
mean you
time.
haven't rolled? Like, what is like, so that to me is a red flag because like I think that's a way to really keep people strung along. And also it's like I'm not saying every white belt should roll 100. You know, we don't really let the white belts full on roll until they get comfortable, but they do roll in a certain constraint, in a certain limitations.
Mhm.
Like I think not allowing someone to roll at all gives them a very, I think it impedes their progress and impedes their growth and their understanding and their ability to get better. Like it really slows their progress down immensely.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like there's some other components of control there. Like, hey, you need to do this many classes in this much time and get this belt or this rank before you can actually start rolling and going to the next phase. I don't think it's so much a safety thing, which initially is in some capacity. Like that's why when Chewy, you said we have white belt classes and like, you know, you talk about like the white belts can roll in very limited capacity and certain
Yeah, they
constraints
do
just to keep
positional
them safe.
sparring. Yeah.
Positional sparring. However, like not letting them roll at all, not even positional stuff. Like that stuff sounds a little wacky to me.
Well, and I think didn't you tell me that the same guy, like, they had all these sort of it's like you had to go to the seminars in the gym for belt promotions and,
You
like,
have to
had to
attend
pay this much for a
seminars,
test.
have to take certain privates. There
Yeah.
another thing is no open mats, like, at the gym. Like, there was not an open mat, like, where you could just go and, like, you and your buddy can just drill or just train together. You
Mhm.
had to, like you have to schedule privates, and you have to have a certain number of privates. From what I kinda recall, maybe be 100% accurate, but there's I think you have to have some privates before you could even belt test. So I don't know. It just seems like there's just a lot of red tape to get through to like, dude, you just want to train. It ends up being a lot of money because
Yeah.
privates are not
Yeah.
cheap, right? So you got to go to seminars.
Well,
You know, you
you
have
got
to
gym
attend these
membership,
things,
you got privates, you have seminars,
belt
you got
tests.
belt test. I mean, that's a considerable
You're
amount of
racking it up.
yeah.
A-
And I mean,
And
hey,
and
like, I mean, you're gonna make some money doing that probably. I don't know how long you're gonna keep those people. Because if it's the gym that I
exactly.
think if I'm thinking about, I don't think they have one black belt.
Well, they got one.
Well, they got one, but they don't have any more than that.
That's another red flag is not here's a secret red flag. If you go to a gym, like here's the thing I did today. I wasn't trying to show off by any means. We had a new person come in and I was like, you know, showing them like, boom, this is like the gym. You know, these are the classes. Do you see those? I said, see that wall? Like those are a bunch of the black belts, man. Those are people who've been here for a while. So we've got like a lot of experienced grapplers. And I was telling
Mhm,
about Kato is another one. I see her right there, dude. She will like she messes people up. She's awesome. And it's just
mhm.
like cool. And he's like, oh, I really like seeing, you know, that's cool that you have like women black belts and stuff. Cause it's not, you know, people see that. It's more common, significantly more common now. But back in the day, man, not terribly common. It's few and far between. Just like there are few and far between black belts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
100%. So yes, I mean, like, if there's no like higher level belts at the gym and the gym is relatively it's been around for a while, that's a problem. If it's a newer gym, then of course they're not going to have a bunch of higher
Sure.
belts, right? But
Sure.
if it's a gym that's been around for a long time and they don't have any higher belts, that tells you that there's something wrong because people aren't making it to the other end. It would be like going to a college and nobody ever graduated. You know what I mean? Like they had tons of enrollments, they had tons of people like signing up, and nobody ever made it to the end. They'd be like, "Hey, there's a problem here." So yeah, I mean, I think again, I'm a I'm a dirty capitalist like any business owner in America who's trying to make a good living for himself, his
Yeah.
family, and provide for people. It is what it is. But at the same time, I think there's with the gym business stuff, I think you have to, and I think this is where people again you can kind of go back to that same idea. you don't have any black belts of your own. They didn't, no one sticks with you that long, right? When you're running a business like ours, and this is true, I think, for any small business, it's all about balancing relationship with like the money on the other end. And, you have to take care of the people because, again, in the end, for a small business, the wealth of your business is measured in your relationships with the people, because most of us, we're not selling a widget that can be sold to someone. It's not like for instance, Eugene, like you have your private practice. You can't sell that to anybody. No one would buy it because, like, so what are we buying? We're buying Eugene, right? If I sold my business, who am I going to sell it to? Some mats. Like, I'm not going to be able to make anywhere close to the amount of money I spent on those damn things. The wealth of the business is wrapped up in the relationships with the people, right? And so with it, you really have to balance that because that's important. And there is a certain point where the pricing becomes abusive. It's one thing, hey, you got to charge a little bit of money, no problem. Hey, you got to charge for a seminar. You want people to wear your gear. And, honestly, like, I don't do it myself, but I can even understand, hey, if you want people wearing, like, you want everybody in the gym to at least have one team gi or rash guard or something. Hey, no problem. Even that, no issues, right? But like when you're saying, like, just to like get down and do the nuts and bolts of what we actually do rolling, you've got to go through this long graduated process and spend maybe $1,000 to $2,000 to do it. That seems a little funky to me, personally. And, I think, again, you're at that point, you're not even really learning jiu-jitsu, because learning doesn't happen from just doing repetitions by themselves. The repetitions, again, can be useful. Learning how to get the feeling and moving around in positions and just kind of getting acclimated, that can be fine, right? But until you actually do that under some sort of level of stress, under live conditions with a resisting opponent, you don't actually know jiu-jitsu. You haven't learned anything. You know the techniques exist, but you don't actually know how they work. It's like saying that you're going to try to get, you're learning how to like you're learning words, right? You're learning these different words and you're whatever, but you never actually talk to anybody. Okay, how you won't know if you're good at having a conversation with someone, and you can't develop your skills as a person who's going to have a conversation with someone until you actually talk to another human being and have a conversation with them. Same idea, right? Like, until you're interacting with another human being and fighting with one another and trying to do this stuff, you don't really know how things work. Because just like, say, words, like, you can think of because I always think of jiu-jitsu as a language. Think of a particular word. You could take a word, and the way it is placed in a sentence, the way that the person expresses it, the tone that they use, the facial expressions they use with that word can change what that word means. It could take a really bad word and it can almost be comical or funny or lighthearted or whatever, just by the different way it's used. You don't learn that just by simply, like, studying it and looking at it in a book or just sounding out the word. You learn that through conversations with people and figuring out, as you're interacting with people, how they're using it and all those sorts of things, right? That's how we learn. Look at little babies. They learn how to start speaking well before they ever learn how to spell or anything. They just learn how to use the words because they play around. They interact with us.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a disservice when you don't allow people to roll. I'm not saying they have to roll immediately. I like doing positional rolling from the beginning because I think it's useful. Like, say, hey, we just did this one thing today. Let's try to use it now. And we're going to contain you to this little specific sliver of jiu-jitsu and do some different positional sparring here. So you actually get a chance to see what that's like, versus, okay, you just did your technique. See ya. Like, you're probably not even going to remember it because that technique no longer has it has no purpose. Because a lot of times, like, when you do a technique and then you try to use it, then when your coach comes back and shows you adjustments and details and corrections to it, it makes more sense because you actually have some real context to how this thing actually works versus you're dealing with theoretical, right? So,
yeah, stress is so important. You have to have stress to learn. Like, you need to feel some type of stress and resistance. That's how you know what works and what doesn't. Otherwise, like you said, it's all theory, and it's not. It's kind of like you practice all these moves or these jabs and punches, and you hit a punching bag, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody punches you in the face, and you're like, "Oh shit!" Completely everything goes out the window because you've never been punched before. Your technique, all that stuff, that theory, that quote unquote self defense that we see, right? here's self-defense jiu-jitsu. This is how you do this, how you do that. Well, if you've never really had a punch thrown at you, so you need to get some gloves on and do some real life type situations. Otherwise, it's all theory. And you're essentially thinking you're going to grab the hand and do this. But when it comes down to it, somebody punches you and you can't grab the hand because you don't have the timing or the experience, or you realize this shit's not working.
Yeah.
Then you kind of really, I think that's where the growth and learning comes from, is actual that stress, which is very important.
Yeah. Testing things out, doing it. All right, guys. So first off, thanks for being on the podcast with us today. I will want to say apologies for my voice. It probably cracked a little bit. I've got some sort of respiratory thingy from the little man. Little man we went to a field trip last week, and he came home with a snotty nose and some coughing, and then I got the snotty nose and coughing. And so it's not really that bad, but just, my voice was actually gone for about a day and a half, and now it's coming back. But every now and then it kind of breaks a little bit.
Yeah.
Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Athletic Mints. Again, there's CBD and THC. It's a low dose of THC. You're not going to be, stoned out of your mind like the jiu-jitsu coaches we spoke about earlier. It is a very low dose, very mild dose. But again, they have 3 different mint products. One is called Flow, one is called Power, one is called Rebound, and they're there for specific reasons to help get you recovered, or to help you with intense training, or to help you get into more of a flow state. I like the mints. I use them off and on. I don't have any sort of weird hangovers from them. Nothing like that. It's very mild, but I do find that there's a noticeable difference when I take them. If you guys want to check them out, their website is ATHLETHC, athletic, but with the THC there, .com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu10. So if you find something you like, save 10%. And again, give them a try. It's a cool company, made by black belts, some older black belts that have made some other products and stuff like that. And it's a cool product. Enjoy using it and enjoy supporting them and sending it out there to your guys' way in case you guys want to check them out. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. Again, I've talked about it before. I really like their stuff. They've been a long-time sponsor. I've used a lot of no-gi gear out there, and they're still my favorite. That's why I get my rash guards and shorts made through them. It's not because I get some special deal with them or anything, really. I mean, like, Matt and the guys take care of me, of course, but I have options to go in different places, and I choose to go there because I like the fit, I like the comfort, I like the quality, and I also like the people. I think they're just genuinely good people. So if you guys want to check them out at Epic Roll, they've got a lot of stuff out there: gis, rash guards, shorts, hoodies, t-shirts, anything and everything jiu-jitsu related. And you can save 20% on the order if you use the checkout code Chewjitsu20 at checkout at epicrollbjj.com. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. You can check them out at charlottesweb.com. Again, a lot of people have heard about CBD for a long time. It's been around for a long time. Charlotte's Web also has some other products like CBN products, which are great for helping you support your sleep and some other things. I encourage people, if you go to their website and you find something on their website that you're kind of interested in, but you want to check it out, you can use our promo code to save 30% off the order, Chewjitsu30, at checkout, and try it for a month and see what you feel. Be consistent with your taking of the supplement and see how it works for you. I encourage people to do that because a lot of their supplements have been really useful to me and a lot of the students and stuff that I share them with. But again, you gotta find that out for yourself, because supplements, just like drugs and everything else, affect people differently. So again, if you guys want to check them out, if you've been interested in their products or similar type things, you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu30 for 30% off the order. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, rolling over to our Patreon website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And when you do, you'll get access to an exclusive list of perks and content that we offer, including recordings, seminars, warm-up routines for jiu-jitsu practitioners, and a hell of a lot more, all for a very low price. And again, if you guys want to do that, you can check it out at the Patreon website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And again, guys, as I spoke about earlier in the podcast, if you guys want to get better in jiu-jitsu, you got to stay focused. You got to be more focused with your training. It's the best way to get better faster. And if you guys want to check out check out my daily email that I send out and become a Chew Crew subscriber, you can do so by going to my website at jiujitsu.net/join, where I send out my daily email. And then from there, you'll also get access to a video and ebook that I created that goes into a ton of different strategies on how to add more focus to your open training. And so I wrote the ebook, I made the video, but so if you want to listen to it, watch it, whatever, you can do that. so that this way, if you are a person who basically, you're just a regular Joe training, you don't have the time to train every single day, and you don't have time to drill, but you can come in during those open rolling sessions. It gives you some strategies on how to get the most from that. And you do that by adding focusing to your training, which gives you both more motivation for training because you actually have a goal, but also too, then you get better faster because you actually have something you're working towards rather than just having really hard training sessions, but they're aimless, right? So simple idea, jiu-jitsu.net/join is the website. And that is it, guys. Thank you for being here with us. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.